You are listening to the Taylor Road Baptist Church Pastors Podcast. We are so excited to have you join with us today. Please make sure that you go and subscribe to our channel so you can get a notification every time we post a new podcast. Well, hey, welcome to the Pastors Podcast. It has been a while since we've released one of these.
BC.
Yeah,
before
BC.
COVID.
Yeah. And, we talked about a lot of things. We had like a really good streak going before this.
We were in a groove.
We were. We
Well,
talked about
in
some
full disclosure,
we
yeah, but we recorded like 20 episodes in one day.
I wasn't going to say that. That's true. We did record a lot. Thanks to scheduling.
We got ahead of it, man.
Man, this has been a crazy, we're 115 days, 110, something crazy like that.
March 15th was the first Sunday that we stayed home.
I can't do that math.
I can't either, but I know that was a long
I know we're
time.
well over 100 days now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And now with the mask requirements in our city, that's just another level of humiliation.
I struggle with the mask because it gives me like mask beard. And so I'm looking for someone to make me a mask that can like help with my beard. So like they're not designed for beards.
You need to do that.
I need a beard mask.
You could retire early if you nailed it and you did something.
Well, if anybody's listening that is really good and wants to design me a beard mask, I would take one.
Oh, we digress. We
do very quickly. We just started it too.
It's day 1 million of quarantine, and we're losing our heads.
Oh man, yeah. I've never found it since we started. So so what we wanted to kind of do to this podcast, just kind of talk about what's going on. Pastor Daniel's done a great job of talking about it through social media and from the pulpit, but just kind of behind the scenes of what we're thinking about and dealing with, and from this side of things. And so
we're in a weird spot as far as going forward. When all this first started, we had a lot of meetings, and as far as deacons and staff and just really just trying to get our bearings. And we were just talking about March the 15th was the first Sunday that we went into exile, so to speak. And I talked with a buddy of mine up in Gadsden. He's a pastor up there, and this would have been that Thursday or Friday before the 15th. So everything was starting to shut down, and that was a difficult decision. Do we cancel worship? Do we whatever? And I'll never forget, he told me, he said, Daniel, this will be the only Sunday that you have to make that decision. He said, after today, after this weekend, he said, it's going to be made for you.
Yeah.
He said, and I thought he was just overreacting. I thought it was Chicken Little, the sky's falling kind of thing. But man, was he right, And I think all of us went into this with this idea that, this will last a few weeks.
Yeah. And
just enough to whet everybody's appetite for church, and then everybody will beat the doors down to get in. And man, has that been just I'm not a prophet, so I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously we canceled the San Diego trip that was supposed to leave March 14th. Yeah. And then just, we bumped everybody to New York City. We said, hey, we're going to go to New York City in July. And I remember with the talk saying, hey, we might not start back until May, and we thought, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
A month and a half of no church, and here we are, still trying to figure this out.
I don't think anybody really knows, and everybody that's saying they know what's going to happen and how nobody knows, and that's the thing, and trying to shepherd through this pandemic, and I know our conversations, you've talked about shepherding the students and shepherding families and all that. It's hard, man. I mean, to virtually do that. Mm-hmm. We've had 2 church members pass away during this time, and to think that you can't be there with the family.
Right. You
can't be there with that person. We've had a lot of hospitalizations. You can't be there. You can't go to the nursing home.
Right.
It's just been difficult, man, to shepherd people, and then not having people on campus. You've always heard that the church is not a building, and it's not. But I said at the very beginning of all this, and I'm really starting to see it in my own life now, we were going to find out just how serious our walk with the Lord was, and just how serious we took family worship, and that's one thing that I think has changed for the good and will change forever, is for us as a staff really pushing and implementing how do we shepherd our families that are members of our church to create and cultivate a church in their home. Mm-hmm. How do we cultivate that? Something that we've talked about for a long time, but not ever something that we were forced to do like we are now.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And through this, I think this has revealed some weaknesses for us too. And I know for me, it's revealed a weakness I've known for a while, but I've been able to hide, and that's communication. Because I'm an in-person guy.
Yeah.
I don't do phones well.
Yeah.
I don't do social media very well at all. And so having to force myself to try and learn how to communicate well, and it's been a challenge. So
yeah.
I think this has been a good growing experience for a lot of people, and I like looking at this as a God thing rather than a Satan thing. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but people talk about this is just pure evil, and this is straight from Satan.
Right.
And, I guess it's your point of view, how you want to look at it. Is you look in the book of James, which we studied as students, and I see this as a trial from God, saying, hey, let me, they've been, I guess as a church, not just Taylor Road, but as the church, been doing well for a while. Let me throw a trial at them, see what happens.
The church got really comfortable.
Oh yeah.
And not to stir the pot, because the Lord knows that's all I need right now is to stir pots. But even politically in this country, for a lot of Christians, the talk has been, well, we got our guy in the White House that's going to fight for Christian freedom. And it reminds me of, and that's not a knock against the president or anything like that. I'm just saying, it's reminded me of the verse in Psalms, some trust in horses, some trust in chariots, but we trust in the name of the Lord.
Right.
And we've talked about this in staff meeting. What if, I know this sounds kind of crazy to state it like this, but what if, like you just said, Clint, what if we actually believed that this has been part of God's plan all along? Instead of looking at every negative thing and blaming the devil, blaming Satan, do I think that this is a result of the curse? Yeah, absolutely. And the result of sin in the world? Absolutely. Pandemic. It's broken creation. And I believe that Satan has used this. He leverages things for evil. But I don't think Satan caused a disease. I don't think he has the power to do that.
Right.
But if you look at Job, everything that was leveraged against him was only because God allowed it. And as you look at that story, God kept Satan on a very tight leash. God told Satan what he could and couldn't do. And so as we look at what's going on, what if this is exactly what God wanted all along? And that'll begin to shape the way you look at this. And, it's really, I think it's been a very purifying season.
Yeah. It has. And that's one thing that we've talked about quite a bit, is how it, we had looked at the calendar and just saw how packed it was. And God just kind of said, nah, we're wiping that clean.
Yeah.
And we're starting over. And we're being very intentional about what goes back on the calendar.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Does it fit the vision? And I think that's been good for us as well.
Yeah, we want to get back to normal. That's what you hear. Well, what if normal's what God was trying to change?
Yeah.
So why resist that? Why look at what we've been doing? They were good things, but are they the best things? And that like you just used the word intentional, and one of the last podcasts that aired before all this was our core values. Intentionality. Spirit-led intentionality with joy and excellence. Most of what you're seeing come out of Taylor Road now as far as from your leadership, from the pastoral leadership and staff to you as members, it's all spiritual. So we provide the weekly family discussion guides. Clint is doing small groups with students going through the Word, and beginning, on Wednesday nights, we're going through our confession of faith, and we're providing families. We'll be sending email blasts out with PDFs each week. How do you take that one confession of faith, that one question and answer, and do a family devotion with it? And I think there's been an intentional shift again, I think it all goes back to how do we cultivate family worship? Because we've seen now what happens when you take the gathering away. Mm-hmm. And even though we're back in, I mean, I tell you, I told the church this Sunday, even though our numbers in the last 3 weeks have averaged about 1/4 of what we were running before, BC, before COVID. And honestly, I don't know that we'll see those numbers for a long time. Just people are very intimidated by this virus, and a lot of people don't need to get out in it. We got a lot of elderly and immunocompromised people, and
definitely,
unfortunately, I think, and if you're one of these listening, I just think people have gotten out of the habit. It's just easy to watch at home, but I think there's just a sweet spirit on Sundays now. Mm-hmm. Not that there wasn't before, but man, the last 3 Sundays that we've been in there, before, I'll just be the first to admit, I would always, what was our attendance this Sunday? It was always about growing, get bigger, numbers wise. And that wasn't like a god, it wasn't like an idol. I'm just saying that was something that was always in discussion. But we could have 20 people in there right now, and it's just sweet worship. I mean, it's just, God is really, that song we talked about before, that worship song, coming back to the heart of worship. It's stripped down, it's condensed, and we're not trying to cram a million things into a worship service.
Yeah, I've had this quote from David Platt's book, Radical, in my office for probably a year and a half now. And, you think now it's prophetic, but he says this: what if we took away the cool music and cushioned chairs? What if the screens are gone, the stage is no longer decorated? What if the air conditioning is off and the comforts are removed? Would God's word still be enough for his people to come together? Is his word enough for us? And for me, that's something I've thought through. I mean, because we've had it all removed. Mm-hmm. We no longer have the stage, the performance, at least for the longest time, we weren't able to meet together. It was Zoom. It was watching on TV at home, and for a lot of people, that kind of became the question: is God's word enough? Or do I need the production? And I know that was a challenge for me to say, now that I can't play games with our students, now that we don't have a student band leading worship, and we just have the Word of God and discussion in small group, is that going to be enough? And I've been encouraged to see the number of students that have hung around and are just there to learn the Word, and to see our church members that are tuning in every week and coming every week for the Word, and that's been encouraging through this.
Well,
time.
And that's you're hitting the nail on the head. I've been encouraged too to see folk. I mean, our parking lot has been packed in sweltering heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and people are coming to hear the Word and to worship together, even though it's uncomfortable and it's stuffy, and we couldn't get the stupid FM transmitter thing to work, and
no screens, no lights, no air conditioning.
We're on a flatbed trailer, for crying out loud, and people have been coming, and there's even even though we're not attendance wise indoors what we used to be, but people are having to wear a mask for an hour. And they're still coming, and so, and even though, again, there's people that just, they don't need to get out, and they're watching at home, and to see that viewership, but I do think this has been a purging time, is to, like you just said, it's reminded us all, even though you may be at home watching, or you may be in the parking lot, or you may be here having to wear a mask, is the Word enough? And I know there is not a single pastor that I know of, and if they are, please let me know, that is just really thriving and enjoying this time.
Yeah. No, that's
no student
you're
pastor.
right there.
No, and in Acts chapter 20, I've been going through the book of Acts in my quiet time, and this has been a trial. I mean, this is for all of us. And there's been times where honestly, we talked about this is the Bearing of the Soul podcast. There's been times where I've just sat there and in the quietness of the moment and go, is this worth it? Is it worth it? And then I read about Paul, who was shipwrecked, and beaten in every city that he went to. And I came across this verse a while back, and Paul is bidding farewell to the Ephesian elders, these men who just love him. And it says, when he told them goodbye, he said, "I'm never going to see you again." And they wept and they clung to him, and it was just this very emotional moment. But Paul, he says he's on his way to Jerusalem, compelled by the Spirit, Spirit-led, core value, not knowing what I will encounter there, except that in every town the Holy Spirit warns me that chains and afflictions are waiting for me. He's like, I'm going. And he doesn't say, I know that there's going to be a lot of people when I preach, or there's going to be a lot of people that congratulate me and pat me on the back, and the things that we've made ministry, like fanfare, right? He says, no, the only thing that's waiting on me are chains and afflictions. But I'm still going. And then it says, verse 24, but I consider my life of no value to myself. My purpose is to finish my course and the ministry I received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of God's grace. All he was concerned about was finishing. That was it, man. And he's like, and he eventually died in Rome because of it, but he was willing to encounter chains and afflictions and mobs and you name it, because he just wanted to finish. He wanted to cross that finish line because God had given him a purpose, a course, and he didn't get off that course. And so, God has called us to the ministry, and that's the thing we've talked about with kids in the student ministry in college that feel called to ministry. We made them write out their testimony, and I did that when I was a kid. Write out your calling on paper, and put it in an envelope, because there's going to be a day when you need that.
I've had to go back to that a few times.
Yeah, I mean, this is no pastor sat down when they got called to the ministry and was like, well, I guess I'll stick through it in a pandemic. We know none of us saw this coming. And for us Christians, when we sign up to follow Jesus, we have to know that it means carrying our cross. And understanding that means suffering sometimes. Sometimes that's hardships and trials. It's not all candy canes and roses, but it's, again, what if this is what God had planned the whole time? Yeah. For us. So, not to be a Debbie Downer, but that's just kind of my reflections.
Yeah.
100 million days into quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, this is a good podcast back. And I'm sure we'll continue to talk about the pandemic in the future, and in addition to some other things. But thank you guys so much for tuning in with us, and hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week. Again, thank you so much for joining with us today. Please make sure that you go and subscribe to our channel so you can get those notifications. If you'd like to know more about Taylor Road Baptist Church, we're at taylorroad.org, and we are located at 1685 Taylor Road, Montgomery, Alabama 36117.